everybody. Welcome to Living Traditions Homestead. I am in the kitchen. I'm so glad to be with you today. We are gonna do two really fun projects and I can't wait to share them with you. Now, just about a week ago, we had our first frost, and before we had that, we needed to glean everything left from the garden and bring it into the house so it wouldn't be ruined. Well, online, on Instagram and Facebook, I have been seeing a lot of your final harvests and these bumper crops, like the end of your tomatoes and peppers, lots of squash, pumpkins. Well, today we're gonna do two fun projects with one of my very favorite things to grow, which just happens to be peppers, if you didn't already know that. Today, we're going to make two different types of hot sauce, two different types of Sriracha sauce, which also happens to be my favorite type of sauce to put on things aside from ketchup, which is my #1 favorite. And before we get started, I want to bring in my entire year-end pepper harvest and show you because I'm so pleased and I'm so excited to have all these peppers to do something with. Okay, I have this basket and this basket and this basket and this basket. Now, no, I'm not going to make Sriracha sauce out of all of these peppers, but I am going to do something with all these peppers, starting with Sriracha sauce. Now, you may be thinking, this lady is like so weird. She's so excited about peppers, but I really am this excited about peppers and I really do absolutely love gardening. So it's okay if you think I'm a nerd. I just love this stuff. Okay, let me put this stuff away, but keep out what we're gonna work with today, which today are going to be red jalapenos. Maybe you haven't heard of Sriracha sauce. Well, Sriracha sauce is a red hot chili sauce that is really popular in the United States. It's an Asian sauce, but I put it on tons of food. The reason why I like to make my own Sriracha sauce is because then I'm in control of the ingredients. There are just a few ingredients in homemade Sriracha sauce, regardless of how you make it. The company in the US that is pretty famous for making Sriracha sauce is called Foi Fung Foods, and they have red jalapeno chili peppers, but if you don't have red jalapeno chili peppers, you could use Fresno peppers or any other red chili pepper that has a thick flesh. There are generally two ways to make Sriracha sauce when you search how to make homemade Sriracha sauce on the internet. The first is to ferment the peppers, making fermented Sriracha sauce, and the other doesn't ferment the peppers. It heats them mostly with vinegar, and both of them are blended up into an amazing sauce. The fermented sauce you keep in the refrigerator, and the other sauce you can process with water bath canning and keep it on your canning shelf, and that'll be good for a long time. The fermented Sriracha sauce will be good in your refrigerator for at least a year. So I thought, because I love it so much, maybe you do too, and I would share with you both ways to make Sriracha sauce. We're gonna start off our projects today with making fermented Sriracha sauce. And I wanna start there because I think there is a lot of intimidation out there about how to ferment. Is it safe? What does it do? Why on earth would you do that? And that's why I wanna start today, because I want to encourage you to give fermenting a try. Okay, let's get started on the fermented Sriracha sauce. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna slice up these jalapenos. Now, you can just cut them in half if you want, but I slice them in rings so that I can get more peppers in the jar. I am using gloves today because I don't want all that spicy jalapeno oils to get into my skin and like never come off for 2 weeks, and every time I rub my eyes I get hot burning pepper oil in my eyeballs, and I would rather not have that, so I'm using gloves. Like I said, I'm gonna be slicing these into rings, don't use the stem, and putting them in a wide mouth quart-sized jar. In a nutshell, the way that fermenting works is you put vegetables in a jar with salt water. Bad bacteria cannot live in a saltwater environment, so the salt kills the bad bacteria. But the good bacteria can survive the salt. The good bacteria eats the natural sugars within the vegetables and creates lactic acid. Lactic acid then preserves the food. So that, in a nutshell, is how fermentation works. So we are going to continue slicing these jalapenos, filling up the jar until it's about 1.5 to 2 inches from the top. We'll have my jar about halfway full, and I'm going to stop for a second because there's one more thing that I'm going to add to this jar before we move forward, and that is garlic. Now you can add a little bit of garlic, you can add a ton of garlic. I'm going to be adding 10 cloves of garlic because I think that sounds fantastic and I love garlic in my hot chili sauce. So we're just going to pause and do that right now. Now I absolutely love this little thingy that I got on Amazon. Actually, somebody sent me this from Amazon, and it takes the papery peel off of the cloves of garlic. You just take your garlic clove, put it right inside of here, back and forth like that. And when you take it out, all that paper is off of there and you have a clean clove of garlic. Now, in this case, you can either put this whole right into the jar, or you can just smash it a little bit and put it in the jar like that. That's what I like because I think it lets more of the flavor out into the peppers and into the fermentation liquid, which I will be saving and using in salad dressings. Just plop that in there and move on to the rest of them. Okay, that is all filled up. And so now we need to move on to making the brine to fill that up, get the fermentation process started. For making the brine, we are basically just making salt water. We're gonna use 1 tablespoon of salt for 2 cups of water. Now you want to use some kind of salt that has no additives in it, definitely no iodine, not the iodized salt. I'm actually using pink Himalayan salt. Love this salt. I buy it in bulk, 5 pounds at a time from Azure Standard. We're gonna put that in 2 cups of water and we're gonna stir it until it is completely dissolved. The water I'm using is our well water. We have fantastic well water. It's been tested, it's awesome and safe and doesn't contain anything that is harmful to us. But you want to make sure when you are making ferments that you don't use water that has chlorine in it. Most city water or municipal water is chlorinated to kill all the bacteria. I think this is all dissolved. You can see that it's still kind of pink because of the kind of salt that I used. We're gonna pour this into our jar almost up to like an inch to the top of the jar. I'm gonna stop right there. And now I'm gonna be adding a weight to the top of this. It's gonna sit on top of the veggies and hold those veggies underneath that salt water to make sure that no mold starts forming there. The system that I've been using lately that I absolutely love is from a company called Year of Plenty. These are the weights. Let me show you what I like most about these specific weights. Now these are glass weights. They're made of glass. They're pretty heavy and they have a ring carved out of them, and the center here helps you grip. So you can put it down into the jar easily, and then when it's done fermenting, you can pick it up and take it out easily. So I'm gonna put this on top here, press down until it is under the rim of the jar. This is also going to make the liquid come up near the very top of that weight. Now that the weight is on, we can put the top on. We're gonna be using this fermentation lid that has an airlock on top. Let me show you. So here's the lid portion, and inside of here comes a little gasket that prevents leakage from around the edges of this lid. So I'm just gonna put this lid on like that. There's a hole in the center there for this airlock. The top comes off of this airlock, and there's a piece that goes inside of there like that, but first we need to put a little bit of water in there. Put the second piece on top of there, the lid on top, and put that right in your lid right here in that hole. Now this system will let air come out of here as it's fermenting, but the water here will not let air or bacteria get down inside of there. I love this system. It's clean, it's very easy, and I never have to worry about bacteria accidentally getting down in there. If you're interested in the system that I'm using, you can check it out in our Amazon shop. Okay, this is all set to just sit and ferment. I am going to put a piece of tape on there with today's date so that I know when it is that I started this. These peppers need to sit and ferment for at least 2 weeks. They can go longer than that, up to about 3 months, but at least 2 weeks you're going to wait and let these ferment before you move on to the next step. Now, I happen to have started this process with jars several weeks ago, about 3.5 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago now, and they've been sitting on my counter back here. These smell fantastic, they're gonna taste fantastic. Let's move on to the next step where we process these, add a couple of ingredients, and voila, we have fermented sriracha sauce. Okay, this part is also very simple. So we're just gonna take off the top here. We're gonna fish out the weight that is down in there. We're gonna fish out the little pieces of pepper and garlic and put them into the blender here. I'm using a slotted spoon so that I don't have to worry about so much of the liquid going in there, although in the end we're gonna put some of the liquid in there anyway, so it probably doesn't really matter. All of the peppers and garlic are in the blender now. I'm gonna be adding 1 cup or maybe just a little less, depending on the thickness that you would like your sauce to be, 1 cup or a little bit less of the brine. I'm gonna blend this all up for a good amount of time, probably about 2 minutes on high. It is looking fantastic. I'm gonna sweeten this up a little bit. The one thing I really like about sriracha, it is a little bit on the sweet side. Now with this recipe, you can add 1 to up to 3 tablespoons of sugar. I'm gonna be using raw evaporated cane juice. I'm gonna be adding 2 tablespoons. But for every tablespoon of sugar you put in, you'll want to add a tablespoon of vinegar. We're gonna put the top back on the blender and we're gonna blend it again for another 2 minutes. Now all we need to do is put it in jars, label it, and put it in the refrigerator. Okay, on to sriracha recipe number 2. Now, if you're not quite sure yet about the whole fermenting thing, or if you're looking for a recipe that will give you a longer shelf life, this is the recipe for you. This recipe we cook on the stovetop, and in the end we can can it in a water bath canning system, and it will be good for you for about 18 months or maybe even longer. So let's get started with this equally easy recipe. For this sriracha sauce, we're going to use about 15 red jalapeno peppers. And we're going to slice them in rings just like we did before. We're going to put these in a little pot for on top of the stove, a little saucepan. This recipe has quite a bit of garlic. Now, you don't need to put this much in there if you don't want to, but I'm gonna be using 20 cloves of garlic. We're gonna peel off the paper parts of all of them, and then we're gonna give them a good smash with the knife before we put them in our saucepan. Pretty easy so far, right? It's really not hard. The entire thing is really easy. So the next step is we need to add some vinegar. I'm using white distilled vinegar, and we're gonna put about 2 cups of vinegar in here, but I'm gonna eyeball it. I'm gonna pour until the vinegar comes just right up to the top edge of the peppers and the garlic. I was just trying to be a little bit careful to make sure I didn't put too much vinegar. I like the sauce to be on the thicker side rather than on the thin, runny side, and that is really how you control the thickness of this sauce. So far we have all the ingredients that we need. We're gonna put this on the stove top and bring it to a low boil. Now that this is boiling slowly, we're gonna turn it all the way down on low. We're gonna let it boil here for 15 minutes. Now I wanna warn you that you may wanna crack a window, open a door, because the vapors coming off here are a little bit like pepper spray. So stay back, maybe warn the family that this is gonna be happening, and make sure fresh air comes into the house. Now I'm gonna very carefully pour this into this blender. I am including the seeds. If you don't want the seeds in there, you can use a slotted spoon to take out the peppers and the garlic first, and then you can strain the seeds out of the rest of the vinegar. I don't mind the seeds. We like the heat, so we're just gonna leave it in. I think that's good. I think that did the trick. Our next step is to strain this through a strainer. The solids will be left behind. The solids that didn't get blended up well enough, they're going to be left behind, and all the wonderful sauce will come through. Might take a little bit of working with a spatula, but it's going to be beautiful and it will work just fine. To work this through the sieve, I'm just going to take the spatula and press down on the sieve, the strainer. All the good stuff is coming out the bottom. All the big pieces are staying on the top. I'll just keep doing this until it's all pressed through here. Not much left in there. You can see on the bottom, there are definitely some of this that we need to scrape off. We don't want to miss that. That is good stuff. This is such a beautiful sauce. Oh my word. Now, to finish off this sauce and sweeten it up like sriracha, we're going to add half a cup of sugar. But it also needs that salty flavor as well, and that's going to bring out some of these flavors. So we're going to put in 2 teaspoons of salt. I'll mix that in. We really do need to melt this sugar into this sauce to make sure it fully combines. So we're going to turn that back on. Not very hot though, because we don't want that to burn. And we're going to bring this back to another slow boil. Let me bring this over and show you just how beautiful this sriracha sauce came out. The sugar just plumped this sauce up. It's absolutely gorgeous, nice and thick, almost creamy. Let's go ahead and pour this into these jars. It is so thick, it's almost the consistency of ketchup. Now, like I said earlier, this recipe can be canned using the water bath canning method. You would fill the jars up to a 1/2 inch to the top of the jar and then process these for 15 minutes. 15 minutes would be for the jelly jar size or a pint size jar. These are actually going to be used fresh by us. If you don't want to can these, they would be good in the refrigerator for about 3 months. I do want to taste them. Okay, so this is the one that we just did with the vinegar, and this is the one that I did that is fermented. I just want to taste them both for you and just kind of tell you the differences and describe to you what they taste like. I can already smell the difference. Fermented food smells and tastes completely different than pickled foods that you use vinegar. fermented sauce is very smooth. The heat is, I would say, a little bit more subdued because it's just had time to ferment and kind of chill out. It's absolutely wonderful. This is a little salty. I do really like that. The consistency is a little bit thinner than I would like. Now that we've done this other sriracha and the consistency is much thicker, I think in the future, I'm gonna take note to use a little bit less of the brine so it's thicker. Okay, now the vinegar-based sriracha. It's also very good. The flavor is amazing, but completely different than the fermented. The spice is a little bit more kind of in your face. I would not be able to tell you which of these is my favorite. They're very different, but both very good. So you guys, I hope that you try one or both of these. It's an absolutely fantastic way to use up a lot of your jalapenos at the end of the gardening season. You could really do this, like I said before, with any chili pepper that has really nice thick walls. It will make fantastic sauce. If you have any other ideas of sauces to make with these fantastic chili peppers, make sure that you include that in the comment section below. I would absolutely love that. I'm always looking for new ideas. You guys, make sure that you subscribe to our channel if you love what you're seeing so that you're notified of our future videos. And the best way for you to help us here on the homestead is to share our videos on all your social media. I know other people are looking for things to do with the end of their pepper harvest. Until next time, thank you so much for stopping by our homestead. Take care and God bless.